Hello everyone, Ultimate Steve here, and welcome to episode 2 of exploring my Minecraft canon worlds. My Minecraft space storyline worlds, whatever you want to call them. I haven't named this series yet. I haven't even uploaded the first video yet, but I thought I'd do part 2 of the station while my mind was still on it. Before we actually get to part 2 of the station, the new expansion, I thought I would look at some of the rockets that built the space station. So this is the Baconator rocket, or it might have actually had a different name. Yeah, okay, right, yeah. Right, I forgot. Baconator is the name of the space capsule that goes on top. Macaroni is the name of the rocket on top. And this is the Macaroni 2, I believe. Macaroni 3 would have been bigger and it would have had these boosters attached. It would have been interesting. Interestingly, it was fueled by, it was fueled by magma cream, or at least a magma cream derivative, and that was something that was really only used for this rocket. But I'll get back into the specifics of these rockets later, but that is about the scale of the rocket that was used to loft the initial modules of the space station. Well, bigger than that, because that's a smaller version of it. It was only used for the capsule, and really small modules. Gargantua, where is Gargantua? Gargantua is over here. It's the one with the giant Gargantua on the side. Was used for the larger modules. It has 2 liquid-fueled engines on the first stage. I believe 2 smaller liquid-fuel engines on the second stage, or was it 1? It was, yeah, I think it's just 1. Yeah, it was just 1 engine in there. And it's got it's got 2 solid rocket boosters, and it was, at the time, probably the nicest launch tower I'd ever built for it. And this was all built by hand on the Xbox edition with a controller. So it was very not a fun experience, but again, I didn't really have anything better to do at the time. Now I don't have the time to do it at all, I guess. I mean, I guess I technically do now. But anyway, so this is actually the second version of Gargantua. It was slightly upgraded. It doesn't really look any visually different, but this version of Gargantua is called Gargantua TC. I've honestly forgotten what TC stands for. But this is the slightly upgraded version of the original Gargantua. However, Gargantua was kind of getting outdated by the time we were planning the new space station expansion. So what we did instead is we built a new version of Gargantua, a really big upgrade called Gargantua U, and that is this and a bunch of other configurations, because this rocket is completely modular. It had like several different first stages, several different booster configurations, several different like engine counts. You could put the stages in a different order. Some of them would have a capsule on the top, some of them would have a fairing on the top. I only ever built like 2 of them because like obviously this is me on the Xbox. I'm not going to build every single variant, but the important part, it was a giant rocket that was extremely configurable and more capable than the original Gargantua. So Gargantua U was the launch vehicle for the large space station modules from now on, and I'll go into further depth on those launch vehicles if I ever make a video on the Gargantua U launch vehicle. So the new segment of the space station is this very regular square thing, in stark contrast to the very irregular spiderweb of space station stuff over here. Every module had a purpose, and as you can see, the general layout is just a 3x3 grid here of nodes with a tunnel between them. Usually the modules will be launched with 1 node and 1 module at the same time. And you'd have these solar panels here. They just rotate to track the sun. This one had to be kind of cut off a little bit because you've got an airlock over here, but I'll talk to that when I actually get there. Although I'm not entirely sure I had planned this properly. Maybe these ones can't rotate as much because the oracle, I can't even pronounce its name. I don't even know how it's pronounced. Well, it's spelled like this. Okay, it's spelled like this. So that's, I don't even know how to pronounce it, and I built it. Okay, so you've got solar panels, you've got modules, you got cores. This was the first module built, and I do believe it was, there's no door. Hold on a second. I'll go through the docking module. The docking module here was another docking, I do believe it's the third of 3 docking sticks. I think this is the last one, unless you count that as a docking stick, or what the oracle gum is attached to as a docking stick, or docking array. So like, again, the first docking array was over here. It's got some of the older stuff on it. The second one was over here. It was mainly the shuttle and the ATV Mark II. And over here, you've got 3. Okay, this is obviously a shuttle docking port because it's a distinctive shape that was used to connect to the shuttle. You can see the shuttle docking port was over here. Oh, never mind. So remember what I said last video about the connectors? That's partially correct. But this docking port was originally for a second shuttle. Back when we thought the shuttle would fly a lot more often. But later on, when it turned out that only 2 actual flight-worthy shuttles were ever going to be built, they upgraded it to serve as the ATV-22 Mark II docking port, and you can see the ATV-22's propulsion system down here, which is just tiny RCS thrusters, which are represented by buttons. But anyway, so over here, we put in another shuttle docking port for who knows whatever reason. Like, by that time, the shuttle had been, like, kind of, like... Okay, maybe someone was still being very optimistic, or maybe they need something to fill out the docking port arrangement. This is fence posts for tying your spacecraft to. And this is something that happened with that incredibly notorious company, which I'll have to make its own video about later on. But they had this spacecraft that was really tiny, and to save mass on the docking system, they just made it so you'd take a lead, and you just tie it to the space station, and EVA across. So they had some interesting ideas about the future of spaceflight. Over here, we have the Afro spacecraft. This is the last original Afro capsule. Well, second to last, actually. There's one... Okay, there's two more. Okay, it's kind of complicated. Afro is kind of a spacecraft that just won't die. But this is the oldest... Like this came directly after Baconator. This was the oldest space capsule that was built, that was like designed from the ground up by the New Nobler space program, because Baconator was designed by the Villager space program, but I'll get into the exact history in a later episode. So this capsule is also like maybe the first or second one I built like in the real world chronologically. Like this is like granted, I built the one on the ground first. I copied it for up here, but this is like the original thing that I built in this world, except for possibly the original Upgoer, but that's a video for another time. Because lava reactor rockets could take up several videos by themselves. So Afro was unique in that it you had a situation where you could take three people up and down, sitting in these three chairs, and you got your computer systems and storage. But it also had a module down here that would be separated before re-entry that could be used for carrying up like additional cargo or additional people if you just wanted to repopulate a space station or animals. This was the only, it probably still is the only. Actually, well, maybe not quite anymore, but this was the vehicle that brought up animals to the animal module, because they have a space for them basically in here. Not many other vehicles can actually do that. Now over here we have a Victory capsule, which is Space M's capsule. It's very nice looking inside. This is it doesn't actually have an ID on it. Usually I number these, but it does not look like I did in this case. You got a dispenser and whatnot for. I'm not entirely sure what that's for. Life support, is it a parachute? I don't remember. You got windows, it can hold 6 people, and underneath the seats, like, I'm okay with breaking this up. You've got the systems are basically hidden underneath the carpets and chairs, which would be designed to be retractable. You've got batteries. You've got a propulsion system with the fuel and oxidizer tanks. You've got you got 3 separate redundant computers of different designs. I don't even know what this is. This is probably the life support system. And then you've probably got supplies for the life support system, or possibly emergency supplies. It was like this. So, and then right below that is the heat shield, which we are piloting a new heat shield architecture, which used the form factor of smooth stone slabs, because there was not even smooth stone blocks in the game at this point. It was still just slabs, and they were even called stone slabs, not even smooth stone slabs. So that's the docking arm. Now the actual expansion of the station itself. This is the first module, which had brand new computers, and this is actually a teleport pad I put in. Like there's an entire segment here where you can teleport to the most commonly used whatever. And I haven't updated this in a long time, so like you can see there's a lot of content in this world, and this is just one of the worlds. This part of the storyline. Granted, it's the biggest one, but there's so many different worlds with so many different rockets in it. I just want to talk about them so badly. So going back to the space station, computers. This module had a few tiers to it. Storage. This module is very bare bones, and a tree just for like nice hanging out in an atmospheric environment. It provides a decent interface between the old and the new, saying, hey, we have space to relax now. So, where from here? Which would be the best orientation to go through? I mean, I suppose we can talk about the space laser first. So the space laser. You've got... Can you see it from here? I think you might just be able to barely see it from here. So that thing, that big sphere with redstone on it, and that little thing snaking up from the side, that thing snaking up from the side, that is basically a laser that shoots incoming asteroids, like a more advanced version of the one over there. This is a gigantic battery, a supercapacitor for that, basically. which powers that, and it's charged by the power module over there, which I'll get to in a second. You've got computers here, like just an array of like servers for whatever you would need to do. And they're relatively modern. They're probably a little bit out of date now, but they're still used. And this was just supposed to be a fun thing. And now I'd have to reset it all the way. But I'm not going to bother doing that right now, because that would take like an hour. This is partly firing controls for the laser here. And we've got, like, you know, just your general, typical observation decks, like I'd love to have. So that was this module. This module is the power module. We can't really go inside of it because it's mostly just designed to be a space not for humans. It just contains power and computers and like stuff for the entire space station. Like, you can kind of see through there. You got rows of computers. You've got a gigantic battery. That's just like future-proofing for the entire rest of the station. Like, it's just, you know, maintenance. Because like up until this point, there really wasn't very large battery banks on the space station. Because before this, you had those tiny little solar panels up here that I can't see right now. And you had that lava reactor, which is kind of showing its age by now. And I'll get into this when I do the lava reactor video. But lava reactors in space are not really a great combination. So by the time that we had built this, we kind of started to know the dangers of that thing right there. So they wanted to rely on it a little bit less. Now here, on this node, we have a few things. Over here, we have a mushroom growth experiment, which I completely forgot exists. Is there a second one up? Oh, oops. Is there a second one up here? Yeah, I had completely forgotten about this. I think this was an experiment to see if red or brown mushrooms grow faster. And judging by the experiment, there's 5 red mushrooms. And I think we started with 1, I think. And there's 5 brown mushrooms. So it looks like they're even so far. That was a throwback to a really old space station, which I'll hopefully be able to tour someday, where I did a similar thing, but I didn't know that mushrooms actually spread. So, like, by doing a fake science experiment, I actually learned, oh, mushrooms in Minecraft spread in the dark. So that was fun. Over here somewhere, this up here. This is that tunnel I was talking about that goes to the movie theater, and this was built block by block by Destination Space, the notorious company. Back when they were trying to justify their existence. It does also provide a little bit of structural reinforcement to the space station, as before this, there was only one connection point, and that ran through a bunch of 3x3 modules. So the space station at this point is kind of fragile. There's probably a plan somewhere to separate this from the rest of the space station if that part explodes for some reason. I don't know. Then we've got a cactus. Before I go into the new farming module, down here, this is a science experiment. Back when we were like, okay, so there were a bunch of companies going, no, iron's better to build with. No, like, quartz is better to build with. No, like, copper's better to build with. Like, because, like, by this point, this is very new. Like, this is after copper and netherite have been added. So this is an experiment to definitively, like, prove once and for all, like, things, like, how things age in space. And I'm actually going to see if I can find this. Like, I'll just go outside here. I don't care about this module. It's brand new. You've got, like, a bunch of identical modules made out of different materials to characterize how everything ages in space. You've got unoxidized, like, unwaxed copper, you've got gold, you've got iron, you've got obsidian, which have typically not been used very often at this point. There is one notable spacecraft made out of obsidian, and I'll get to that eventually. Emerald, nothing has been made out of emerald or diamond for that matter. It's just mostly just, okay, what would happen if? Then, of course, netherite. Now, this may seem obscenely expensive, and it is obscenely expensive. Like, this is a really expensive scientific module. However, there are some notable parties that were interested in netherite-based systems for spacecraft, either as heat shielding or as armor, as we'll get into in a little bit. Down below here, this is the Renegade. Yeah, I did name a second one, like, after that Roblox game. So yeah, the Orichalcum and the Renegade are both ships designed for going to and from the moon. Now, I don't think I ever finished the inside of the Renegade, because this is a very new development. Like, this is probably one of the things I've built most recently. And again, these modules are blocked off because they're not of any use. They're just to see, hey, how long will it take us to wear down in space? Although I suppose I could add airlocks and stuff like that if I wanted to. So this is the Renegade. It's a ship that's not finished yet. It's designed to take a crew from this space station to the space station in orbit around the moon and back. And it's fueled using a lava reactor. Now, I will not get into lava reactors too much, but I did say they were kind of dangerous. And eventually, we figured out how to solve the problems with them. It was a very expensive way, but I'll say that as spoilers for another episode. But yeah, this is a lava reactor ship, and a fairly modern one at that. This is designed to take people to and from the moon. So over here, we have the space station's new farming module. What's down here? Okay, so beneath the floor, you've got a bunch of supplies. I'm not entirely sure what for, but you've got a lot of farming stuff. You can probably eat some of these. You can do science on these. You've got new powdered plants. Like, this was built after the conversion from Xbox to PC. This is new enough that it's only this is new enough that we haven't gotten the conversion bugs that took all of these to Cactus. We've got a bunch of the newer foods. We've got like oxygen systems, oxygen dispensers. We've got, and then we've got even a chorus fruit situation. So now over here is the new animal biology research laboratory, which is, it's an animal biology research laboratory. It's much more humane than the old one. In fact, I should probably let the old animals out of that one and bring them over here, just so they have a little bit of a better life. Because being cooped up in like 1x1 research cells is not a great idea in general. So we have more space right now for the animals. This is just, how do animals work in space? Are animals a sustainable thing to take to other planets, etc. Stuff like that, You've got a nice tree in here, or at least a fake tree. This is only part of a tree. And I do believe beneath here is the water storage tank. I'd have to double check. I'm not entirely sure how to non-destructively double check. Actually, no, hold on, no. No, there's not. This dirt goes all the way to the edge, I think. Maybe. I don't know. But there might be a water tank beneath there. I don't think so, though. So that's also used for flower research. And I suppose that now that we have bees, a new mission would be launched to... this is how long I have not been able to touch this save very much since college. But I suppose that bees will be put in here now on a new mission to characterize how bees perform in zero gravity. And obviously fences so the animals don't get out. Over here is an airlock. Now this airlock was another one of Destination Space's, the notorious company's ventures. You basically have like those vehicles from earlier, from episode 1, that would go by the other airlock. Instead of going EVA to get supplies from them, what you do is you'd have this entire airlock module. This side opens. You'd rendezvous inside of here. You'd close the door. You'd repressurize the section, and then like take all the supplies from this. And this would allow you to reuse like everything from it. You could bring the entire thing inside, and you could probably even bring slightly bigger vehicles inside. Not very bigger, because this airlock is only 3 wide. It would be only of use for like 3 wide spacecraft, which there aren't a lot of those anymore. And then this is the door that you use to close that up. And after Destination Space went bankrupt, oh, and this is the latch. Like, this door closes and this latches it. But after Destination Space went bankrupt, it's mostly been sitting dormant, although it is useful occasionally for retrieving like stuff and like having large EVA capable stuff. I'm sure there is a use for it. It just has not been significantly utilized since Destination Space went bankrupt. I think since for a while I've been hyping them up, I'm probably going to do the 3rd video in this series is probably going to be about Destination Space, because I've talked about them so much. So this is a new life support system. Like, this is just another module to expand on things that were needed before. Like, it has more storage, it has more seating areas. I can't even get in here. What's the use of this? I don't even know. But apparently it had more tables and whatnot. Additional crafting facilities, additional furnace facilities. Like, this is just a manufacturing module, basically. You got storage for things, anvils for things. This is a place for making things and life support, I guess. Because the station was big enough that it would benefit from initial life support systems. Another node here, and this is actually the first module of the next layer of the expansion, because like eventually we were like, okay, the expansion's done, but now there's more things to research about. Let's do additional expansion. This is low-level exposure experiments, like the exposure experiments from earlier where they all hooked up to a machine. This is so we can get every block in, but just with a less rigorous level of scientific data. And this is all of the new blocks since a certain version, I think, or maybe it's starts with new blocks altogether, or maybe it starts the entire sequence all over again. I don't remember. But it definitely has some of the newer blocks in it, and researchers would go around and manually check these and run experiments with their own handheld equipment from time to time. So that's how, this is the newest one. I actually kind of went out of order here, because there's older ones over there somewhere. Over here, I mentioned the explosions laboratory on the very old science module, like the very old physics module. This is the new explosions laboratory. In here, you got the hallway where you have the controls for setting off explosives. You got double airlocks, because like obviously, if you're having an explosion on a space station, you want it to be as safe as possible. And then you have the main chamber, which is entirely obsidian except for this iron door. And there's not even any light sources in here. It's kind of big. It's pretty big. Like, so basically, you can put as many explosives as you want in here, as many test like samples as you want in here, and like do some science. So this is the largest explosives laboratory on orbit. I mean, well, technically, there was a really early mission, like back in like phase like 2 of the space program, where they set up a gigantic bomb in space just to see what would happen. But that's a video for another time. I feel like one of those history YouTubers, except the history is like about things that I completely made up. So this is another what's it called? Material science module, like a materials exposure experiments module. It had slightly more sophisticated machines. Well, less sophisticated than the original science module, more than just sticking them out in the open. It was usually for biological stuff entirely, like different colors of wool, like things that are alive. Like I don't think there's a single thing here that isn't alive except for maybe this. Is this silverfish stone? It is silverfish stone. Okay. So yeah, everything in this module is alive. It's like a biology exposure experiment module. There's also this thing over here, which we started with a layer of grass, a layer of mycelium, and then 2 layers of dirt, I believe. And the experiment was to see which one spread faster, grass or mycelium. And it looks like it came out about even, maybe slightly more to mycelium, but not statistically significant. So that's that half of the station, that half of the new segment of the station at least. This is the optics module. Significant number of scientific importance was placed on how light behaves in space, especially refracting through different materials, and like maybe like how different glasses would like respond to extended durations in space. Now this is incredibly interesting for SpaceM, as you're going to recall, as they built most of their technology using cutting-edge glass components, and they weren't entirely sure how they'd age in space. So this is a module designed to do the general science of how it would test, and of course, we've got rainbow beacons. Whoa! I love that. It's interesting how they just kind of stop having their color at world height there. And they're going to stop in a second. So, of course, you've got a bunch of things that light can travel through, a bunch of colors of glass, and a bunch of light sources. This is the optics research module. Over here, you've got some minecarts, I guess, because why wouldn't you have just random minecart? Oh yeah, they did their exposure experiments for minecarts, I think. This module was another exposure experiment. This is like one of every block, or at least the blocks that existed at the time I built this. And then there were sorting blocks that ended up needing a second module for this. And yeah, all the way over here. And you had like crop exposure experiments, and like I'm not entirely sure. Oh yeah, and chests for all the items that couldn't be put in a thing. Like so, I forget if this was on. That was incredibly dangerous of me. Do you see that? I have a trap chest and a pressure plate right next to a TNT block. I have 2 pressure plates next to the TNT block. I have a lever next to the TNT block. That was incredibly wise of me. This is an incredibly safe space station. Imagine I accidentally blew up my space station. I'm trying to see. Are they the old fireworks in here? Probably not. I'm trying to see if this is the old version. Yeah, this was done in Xbox Edition, because they have the old pre-made fireworks that were in the Xbox Edition. So I one by one placed all those items in here on the Xbox Edition. And over here, you've got something that has been sorely missing from the space station for all these years. You've got bathrooms. After all these years, you've got bathrooms, you've got toilets, a sewage system, and I do believe there are also showers somewhere. I'm not entirely sure where. And then you've got a small water tank. Although it might be a sewage tank, I'm not entirely sure. But that's not a great thing to get mixed up. Right above the bathrooms, you have workstations, which you could like just set out here, and like whatever science experiment you're working on, you could just set things up, have access to power supplies, access to water, access to your own workspace, not constrained by a module. So this would be used for rotating science experiments that were not like specifically like to one module or long term, or not like relevant enough to have their own module for, but still relevant enough to send to space. Now there's currently nothing here because I never built anything here. But yeah, so going back through the exposure modules, we come to the last module of the new segment, and that is over here. This is the living module. which is probably one of the first ones added, because I think it's next to the starting module. Okay, so maybe not as like luxurious as I remembered it being, but it's semi-private rooms. You have a roommate, and you have windows. But if you wanted to, you could probably sleep in shifts, so only one person actually occupied the room at any given time. So this is where most people live on the space station day to day. Everyone gets a room like this, a private room with a solid door. Okay, maybe that one was a bit more luxurious than the rest of them, because I had an extra bit of space. I don't know. So people get to fight over that bedroom, I guess. And I guess there's 3 in here. Yeah, so there's slightly different arrangements in bedrooms. But yeah, so like, not like the most luxurious thing in the world, but come on, you're in space, and definitely a lot more luxurious than what Space M has their tourists doing over there. Okay, so then over here you have the last bit of the exposure experiments module, which has some like things that couldn't be put in the rest of the exposure modules, like these 2 tall flowers, these course plants, these vines that grow. And down here we have my one of my private, not like a private area, but like one of the things that, like one of the nice areas on the space station where you can just chill, read a book, stare at some art, have some coziness. Like it feels like old Minecraft, like with a cobblestone and wood and bookshelves and whatnot and glass, and just look at the world below and the stars beyond. So that is the last component, I believe, unless I miss anything, of the Space Station Infinity, which is the largest space station, and probably the most relevant space station for the Minecraft storyline worlds. So I will hopefully continue this series. Let me know if you want to see more of this. I did forget there is one more bedroom right here. Thank you all for watching. Ultimate Steve out.